The next couple of slides will deal with the changes in the BCA guide to Volume 1 only. The first change relates to the definition of road and public road. There are over 68 occurrences of road and public road in the BCA. The terms are used in a variety of situations and scenarios. To illustrate, consider clause C.24, which deals with the requirements for vehicle access for large isolated buildings. The vehicle access is required for emergency vehicles such as the fire brigade or ambulance. Dependent on the position of this vehicle access, it may be described as a road or a public road. For example, if the vehicle access road is located within the allotment, it is a road, needing to be connected to a public road. If located outside the allotment, however, the road is required to be a public road. A review of this usage in C2.4 and other provisions highlighted there are pertinent reasons for the varied use of both of these terms. To assist in the correct application of these two terms, words in the guide have been added at the most appropriate location where the two terms occur most frequently, and that is in association with the defined term open space. And it says the BCA uses the term road and public road as the case requires. A road can be a private or public road. The appropriateness of the type of road for the purposes of the BCA is dependent on the rights of access to the road. A public road, as the name suggests, is a road available for the use by the public and is usually controlled and maintained by or on behalf of a government body. As a consequence, a public road is considered to be a more permanent feature when compared to other types of roads, such as a private road. Finally, there have been two added reference documents in BCA 2015. That is, two new National Association of Steel Framed Housing Standards. The first is Nash Residential Low-Rise Steel Framing Part 2 Design Solutions. This standard provides design solutions for steel framing members, bracing and connections for use in the construction of low-rise buildings and can be applied to all classes of building. The solutions are based on the Nash Standard Residential and Low-Rise Steel Framing Part 1 design criteria. The new Nash Part 2 standard is available from the National Association of Steel, which I believe you've got to pay for. In NCC Volume 1, Nash Standard Part 2 is deemed to satisfy B1.4c, determination of structural resistance of materials and forms of construction. In NCC Volume 2, Nash Standard Part 2 is an acceptable construction manual and acceptable construction practice under 3.24 steel framing and an acceptable construction manual under 3.10.1 high wind areas. The other new non-Australian standard reference document is the Nash Standard Steel Frame Construction in Bushfire Areas. This standard gives solutions for steel-framed buildings constructed in designated bushfire-prone areas based on the bushfire attack level as defined in AS 3959. This requirement in this standard covers only the requirements for the design against bushfire attack. All steel framing, including roof, walls, floor and subfloor systems, must be designed in accordance with Nash Standard for Residential and Low-Rise Steel Framing, Part 1 Design Criteria or Part 2 Design Solutions. In Volume 2, Nash Steel Framed Construction in Bushfire Areas is an acceptable construction manual and sits alongside AS 3959 as methods of meeting the performance requirements P 2.3.4. The amending building regulations were made on the 31st of March, and they revoke Regulation 117. So as of the 1st of May, the slip-resistant provisions will now apply to Class 1 and 10 buildings. We've been advised that by the 1st of May there will be numerous products on the market that will comply with the requirements, particularly for timber stairs. I understand that Dulux has already a number of products that have been tested to comply with the tables in the BCA, and they are ready to go on the 1st of May. And also the carpet industry has advised us that they've been busy over the last 12 months having testing done to their carpets to ensure that they comply with the slip resistance provisions. The only thing that we did find from the Timber Promotions Council, I don't think they call that anymore, but a gloss finish on stairs will not make the test. So they have had difficulty trying to get gloss finishes, but we understand that the stair industry is quite happy to provide their steps with other finishes other than gloss. Regulation 118 was also included in the amending building regulations, and that will be redundant as of the 1st of May. Our VIC variation has now been amended to align with the requirements that a Class 2 and 3 building no longer needs hose reels. So clause H103 1B 7 has been removed. So for those that don't know where, hose reels weren't required, as of 2013, weren't required in Class 2 and 3 buildings, but we hadn't amended our regulations at that time to meet, so we had to put in a requirement in the regulations to delete that. Now that that's all through, we've amended the BCA and everything's aligned. There are no Victorian variations in the NCC for 2015. Practice notes. Tech and Reg have recently introduced 2 practice notes. They've probably been up there for a couple of months now. One on farm buildings, and that practice note describes the requirements that are under Regulations 119, 120 and 121, and also a live music practice note that describes the requirements under Regulation 122. We've also established a practice note evaluation committee, and that committee is reviewing all the current practice notes at the moment. We're looking at whether we need to remove some of them, amend some of them. Well, we know there will be some that need amending, and identify changes and additions to that, and also consider new ones. Part of that committee will also be looking at what kind of access or distribution of practice notes that we need to do in the future. Will they be a web format type, what style, whether we can use technology in other ways of getting practice notes out there. We've also introduced a new process for requesting a new or amending practice notes. A lot of times we get emails from people saying, oh, we think you need to add this to a practice note, or we think you need a practice note on this or that, whatever the case may be. We've now developed a form which is online and can be completed online, and that form will require, instead of just saying, I think you should do a practice note on this, we're going to ask you for the why, who's it going to benefit, what are the benefits of providing this out to industry, who have you consulted with in formulating this practice note. So if you come to us and say, I think we need a change, or I think you need a new practice note, then you need to look at saying to us, these are the reasons why we believe that should be done. So then the practice note evaluation committee can take that on board and look at that. Similar format to what you would do if you're looking for a proposal for change to the regulations or a proposal for change to the BCA. We sent out just recently, because I saw an email this morning and the results have come back, a survey to quite a number of practitioners on what they thought about practice notes about getting their views and their usefulness. So I'm not quite sure what I just saw that the email that the surveys had been completed and come back. The Practice Note Evaluation Committee is going to be going through those results, and hopefully there'll be something positive out of all of that. Sunsetting. As you're aware, the regs sunset every 10 years. So how many people have actually put in a submission or through their associations put in a submission? Okay, couple. Good. There is still an opportunity to do that. You can get on the website and if you think, oh, look, I forgot about something and I think I've been dealing with this and that regulation should be changed, even if it's, hey, let's make it into plain English and make it easy to understand, is something that you can send in. If you want to wait, you can do so. We've had somewhere around 370 issues have been raised and suggestions have been received, so that's all going to our sunsetting committee and they're going through all that information and looking at how we're going to, whether it's suitable to change the regulations or not, which they have to develop into a policy, which then they have to develop into a draft regulation impact statement. When that draft regulation impact statement comes out, you will have the opportunity to comment on that. So if you haven't had a comment now, there is an opportunity then later on in October to comment on the draft RIS when it comes out. You might be aware that the VBA undertook a building permit audit, and one of the, I suppose, important key messages that came out of that audit was deficiencies in the documentation that was being submitted to the RBS by the practitioners and the documentation being approved by the RBS. So, you know, builders, designers, architects and building surveyors should look at their paperwork and their documentation carefully. Look at it closely. If it's inadequate, doesn't have enough information, don't accept it. Send it back. Got to remember, particularly in the domestic situation, that the drawings and specifications are covered under the Domestic Building Contracts Act. By checking the plans and the documentation, you reduce disputes between the client and the builder. It's important for builders to note that the building plans and specifications all form part of that contract. If the plans are deficient, that leads to complaints. And in a lot of cases, us getting a phone call. So it's important that the documentation is not deficient or lacking relevant information. To help building surveyors, the VBA have produced a Section 30 documentation lodgement checklist that they can use, so when they've got their documentation ready to send it off to council, they can tick the boxes and say, yes, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. So we're trying to find ways of improving the information that we're providing to people, but as practitioners, it's important that you make sure that the documentation that you're dealing with is all there and adequate. Livable Housing Australia Guidelines is a government initiative designed to encourage homes to be designed and built to meet the changing needs of the occupants across their lifetime. It's not mandatory, but it's worth considering in your design, particularly if there's any builders here. Livable Design recommends the inclusion of key easy living features that aim to make homes easier and safer for all occupants, including people with disabilities, ageing Australians, people with temporary injuries, and as well as young children. A livable home is designed to be easy to enter, easy to move around in, be capable and easy and cost-effective adaptation, and anticipate and respond to changing needs for the home occupants. It's much cheaper to implement the changes while the building is being constructed, like putting in extra noggings or strengthening in the walls in bathrooms and toilets for handrails, that might be used later on than trying to retrofit them. If you want more information about Livable Housing, you can go to their website, and they've got quite a good document, and it has 3 levels. I think it's silver, bronze, or bronze, silver and gold levels, or platinum, I think it is. The VBA has updated the Guide to Standards and Tolerances in consultation with the industry using expert committee. It's been developed for practitioners as well as consumers. The 2015 version is available on our website for downloading, so you can get it. We're not doing hard copies. And the new version is also applicable to contracts that were entered into after the 30th of March 2015. This won't apply to everybody in the room, but if you're a builder or a subcontractor, I'll briefly provide some information regarding security of payments legislation, which the VBA does administer. The Building and Construction Industry Security of Payments Act 2002 establishes a process to provide subcontractors with a quick and inexpensive way to get paid or recover money owed to them. The Act applies to all building contracts and all kinds of building work, including commercial and domestic, suppliers and consultants, private or public sector, where the work is carried out in Victoria. The Act came into effect on the 31st of January 2003. The Act applies to most contracts for building or work or for the supply of related goods and services in Victoria. The contract may be oral, written, or a combination of both. This includes all building work. Contracts between a homeowner's building contractor and the subcontractor or supplier are covered under the Act. However, contracts between the homeowner and the builder are not covered in this Act. However, they may use other dispute resolution processes for these contracts, such as VCAT. How it works. A subcontractor who carries out works or supplies goods and services under a construction contract in Victoria can claim progress payments by giving a payment claim to the relevant contractor, purchaser or client. The principal contractor, purchaser or client can pay in full, or if they dispute the amount, give the subcontractor a payment schedule. A payment schedule states how much the contractor, purchaser or client is willing to pay and why it's different from the amount claimed. A contractor, purchaser or client who fails to pay within 10 business days or as required by contract, whichever is earlier, is liable to pay the full amount claimed by the builder. If there's a dispute about payment, the subcontractor can apply for adjudication by contacting an authorised nominated authority or an A&A. The A&A nominates an adjudicator with the necessary skills and experience to adjudicate the dispute. After accepting nomination, the adjudicator has 10 business days, or up to 15 days if the subcontractor agrees, to determine what amount, if any, the contractor, purchaser or client should pay and when. A subcontractor may choose to go to court to resolve a payment dispute rather than applying for adjudication. It's important to keep on top of your paperwork, as you only have 3 months from the last date of work to use the Act to get paid. A payment claim must be made within 3 months of the last date of work, must identify work done or goods or services supplied, identify the amount claimed, and clearly state that it's made under the Act by saying this payment claim is made under the Building and Construction Industry Securities of Payment Act 2002. For further information about the security of payments, you can go to our website. Once you're in there, if you click on Info, go to Practitioners, then onto Security of Payments, and it lists all the information there. As always, if you need to contact us, You can do so by phone, by email, or just walk in the front door and say hello and have a chat to us. Thank you very much.